There is no illusion greater than fear. Yet, to escape fear, you have to go through it and not around it. But sometimes, when we want something so badly, we'll fear failure more than we fear being without that thing. Welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast. And on the show today, we're learning about how to overcome our fears and to unravel the deep secrets inside us that even we are not truly aware of yet. My guest today is Tracy Litt, who is seriously one of the most epic coaches I've spoken with. She's an absolute baller. Her book, Worthy Human, is great. It explains how you are both the problem and the solution to everything in life and really hits the nail on the head. That one totally gets a massive recommendation from me. And on the show, we break into the hard crap that just defines the human experience and how to get comfortable with being ourselves unashamedly. We'll learn how to deal with self-doubt, stop judging ourselves internally or judging ourselves through the eyes of others. The conversation was so great, it's hard to overstate how helpful Tracy was for me and for all the people that she talks to. I know you're going to get a lot of value out of the show, so get ready for some big insights. I've dug this episode out of the archives all the way back from 6 years ago because it relates specifically to a lot of questions that I've been hearing from you lately in regards to how do we even identify the hidden problems that we might face and then address them. I re-listened to this episode this week and it has a lot of really powerful ideas on the small, almost imperceptible default behaviors that govern our lives. We unpack the difficulties behind real personal change and perhaps the hardest thing, which is realizing what fear really is at a deep level within us and how it hides behind the appearance of sometimes lack of fear through other emotions. We initially discuss what triggered Tracy's own initial journey into change, and then essentially I got free coaching from her on all the ways that I was still a scared child who was wandering around as an adult, unaware of what the real things were that were holding me back. It does get slightly personal at times, but obviously I've overcome my own fear of putting those things out there because I think it does really serve as a good demonstration of the sorts of illusions that go on in our own head that we have to break through because they blind us from reality. And I'm sure you will relate to a lot of the things we talk about in the episode. As I said, we start with Tracy explaining what triggered her own journey into examining her behaviors, and the show rolls from there.
I've always been the girl that all my friends come to, right, for how to do life right. I've always been the person that's willing to tell you what you don't want to hear, but you know you need to hear. But the parts of the work that really changed for me was the belief in myself. I had lots of self-doubt. I had lots of, can I, who's going to, why would I do this? What if this doesn't happen? You know, that kind of real that I know we're all very familiar with, because it's very natural to have self-doubt and insecurity about, am I enough? Like my gut, my soul's telling me I'm really capable, but my mind is totally screwing me over. My mind was like, oh, hell no, I don't care what your gut says. This is a no. And it was giving me all that self-doubt to kind of keep me in a safe, locked position. So eradicating my self-doubt and really starting to take the new actions that I needed to believe in myself was a huge part of my growth. Releasing judgment was massive for me. I'll never forget, I was back in coaching school for adult learners. So it would be like live weekends and work throughout each week. So it was like this huge program. And I came back one weekend and I started a judgment journal because I was like, really judge. Like I am love and light, you know, and I'm like happy. So there's no way I judge. I was supposed to keep this judgment journal for a week. I kept it for 2 days and was so nauseous over how much judgment I found. I was like, whoa. And that's when I started doing that work, and that shifted me tremendously. So that's another huge component of the changes. I practice non-judgment, right? And it doesn't mean that every once in a while I don't recognize it, but my awareness is so high that I recognize it instantly and I can shift myself out of it. Releasing control and expectations. I will tell you the story because everyone who listens to this will love how controlling I used to be. When my now husband was my boyfriend and I was having a party and I was hand addressing the envelopes at the party. And he sat down and he was like, oh, can I help? And he goes to grab an envelope and start to write addresses. And I pulled the envelope back from him and I said, actually, here's a piece of paper. Can you just write an example of what you would write. And he looked at me and he said, are you seriously asking me for a writing sample right now? And I was like, yeah, I am. Okay. If that's not control, I do not know what it is. Really? It was an envelope. But at that point in my life, control was how I felt like safe and protected and like, in control. So releasing control has been huge. Letting go of expectations. Oh my God, huge shift for me. So I'd say those beliefs, self-doubt eradication, letting go of judgment, control, and expectations have shifted me energetically in a way that it's hard to articulate.
Yeah, I totally relate to kind of all of those things, really. And especially when you spoke about you first, we're generally like quite a happy person. And then I can't stop myself from coaching people. If my friend ever has a problem, or if they say, I've got this idea to do this, I'm like, yeah, let's make this happen. This is awesome. And they're like, whoa, why are you taking this seriously? It's just like me talking. I'm like, because it's awesome. Let's do it. And so I was always like that. But then I did have like the self-doubt and all the things that you spoke about and was controlling and judgmental and things. But I think I'm much better at this stuff now. Yeah, definitely much happier for it. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you just said is the most beautiful part and the intention of it all. You're much happier for it, right? I said it changed my energy so significantly. That's the thing that I need everyone to realize. It really comes down to how you feel. And when you start to make changes and then you have the new evidence and feedback of feeling so much happier or feeling your energy so much higher or whatever that results in for you, when you start to feel better, that's when you know you're really changing and you're making new choices and you're developing new habits. And it's happiness and joy that we're all really after. And the things that you and I are very beautifully owning, like, oh yeah, that was totally me, releasing that stuff is non-negotiable if you're going to ultimately get to your highest levels of joy.
At what point did this transformation occur in your life story? Was this like before you started the Lit Factor, or was it during?
Yeah. No, it was before I started the Lit Factor. I think right when I lost my mom, like something started to happen. Because how can it not? When you lose someone so significant and such a beacon in my life, she was my best friend, it instantly put me into a place of becoming more introspective, doing a little bit more like, wait a second, life is really valuable. And what am I doing here? And how do I feel? So it kind of like planted a seed, if you will, because it was such a huge tragedy. She was 51 years old. I was in my early 20s. I had a little sister who was only 15 years old. I had an older sister. I mean, this was the kind of thing that you just never want to have happen. So that started it, because the best way to honor a loss is to show up more because you're still here. That to me, and a lot of people I get to work with, students, clients, everyone has grief. And that's the best way to work it and process it. So it started there, that transformation, because I wasn't willing to give it away or let it pass by or live it half-assed or not access my capacity, because look at what just happened. Life is so precious and so fleeting. We're talking about a healthy woman with no issues, and she dies of liver and colon cancer. Towards the end of her life, she became a spiritual healer, started identifying some of her internal stuff that she started to believe made manifest in her illness, right? So I was like, whoa. So interestingly, and this is so beautiful, I have a lot of her old spiritual work. This was 1999-ish. And I look at some of the stuff I write and talk about, and then I'll just go sit and like look through some of her stuff. And it's like identical, like the words that we use. And it fills me up, like totally fills me up. So that started the transformation. And then those other things I mentioned, becoming a single mother, and that's not something you sign up for. You don't start a relationship for it to end with an infant. And having those kind of gut-wrenching moments and sacrifice I had to make and the commitments I had to make and the choices I had to make to create a life for she and I also it's like everything started happening for me to go, whoa, that's interesting. What can I learn from that? How did I create this? What is this teaching me? And it was like a slow but certain snowball that kind of happened to where I was finally like, okay. And then I started getting interested and started reading and started growing. And that's when my soul was finally like, psst, you don't want to just stay in corporate America the rest of your life. Like, you've got something to do here. And then I listened to it. I waited 2 years because the self-doubt was like, no, you can't. Who do you think you are? Don't do that. Oh, you're safe. All of that. And then I was finally at that moment where I just realized that it wasn't willing to go down like that. Like, I'm going for it because this is our one go.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, it was pretty epic. Hope you're okay.
I'm love it.
Good. Okay, cool. It's really interesting to hear the way you describe it as like a kind of unraveling or sort of a snowball effect. Because I certainly feel like the same way in terms of I've been getting more into sort of growth mindset and things and started the podcast. And then that sort of really increased the rate of like becoming aware of the things I could do and like reading more. And then taking like a Vipassana 10-day retreat where it's like a huge sudden shift where like you just get so much more self-aware to everything you're doing and you kind of just recognize more and more opportunities as you're going along. And like you first spoke about how we're blind to so many things and it's so hard to be aware of like your own judgments because you make them like naturally. Like if someone walks in, it's like your brain is built to literally judge what that person's like for you so that you don't have to like spend forever trying to work out, oh, what's this person mean to me? I don't know. And like it's like an innate behavior, but trying to work out what these things are that's going on in your brain, you just get better and better at it as your awareness builds, which is really fascinating. And then I really resonated with what you said about, as in when someone dies, it's not something to be sad about as such as your sort of purpose is to actually kind of show up in life and just sort of live your best life. But then I kind of really feel that way. But then I've never been able to cry when someone dies. I don't know why. I just, I get sad about many things. And I'm sad about the fact that I'll never see them again. But like they're dead. I'm like, well, they wouldn't want me to be spending time being unhappy. So I just won't be unhappy. And it's quite like, I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with me, but it's sort of weird talking to you who says the same things, but then like you were talking and then like I was typing and then I suddenly realized you were crying. I was like, holy crap, how is she crying already? And like, so how would you like have these sort of emotions so strongly and yet you're also kind of thinking analytically and sensibly about it and not being depressed, but like still manifesting like some of the badness about it?
So getting really comfortable feeling all of your feelings is a paramount component to living your best life, accessing your potential, showing up in the world powerfully, whatever platitude feels right for you, right? But ultimately, humans are created to emote. And one of the biggest blocks that I see in many of the people I get to serve is an aversion to emotional expression, right? Is a block around being able to let it flow freely, getting to the point where we're not in judgment of the emotion, right? That crying wasn't good or bad. It was simply, oh, my eyes are watering right now because I'm discussing a matter that hits my heart. And as I'm talking, I'm not going to refocus myself into the crying because I'm not judging the crying. I'm just allowing it because I'm human. And that's what humans do, right? Which then would bring me to asking you, do you feel like you struggle with emotion? Do you cry about other things? Was your environment when you grew up in regards to emotion?
Yeah, I was always quite chilled out when I was younger. Never really got that concerned about things. I was pretty content by myself. And like I said, I didn't speak much. I had like verbal dyslexia and things. So I actually sort of was reading a lot more, but like not really speaking. I didn't have so many friends, but I wasn't really that bothered about it because I was good at entertaining myself when I was young. Yeah, I've never really been a big crier about things. And so I'm not sure if that's difficulty showing emotion or if I just don't get super sad about stuff as such.
Well, you know what's interesting is crying and emotion doesn't always have to relate it just to being super sad, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've cried for joy as well a bit, but I guess I don't do that as much as other people sometimes. I don't know.
Well, yeah. What's
Interesting
interesting
question.
don't even compare yourself. It's not like, oh, they do more, I do less.
Yeah, I get lost on too many things and I'll start feeling a bit sad, but then I'm not all that sad. But then I'm like thinking also about why is everyone else so sad? And like my brain's doing like 5 other things and it doesn't need to be doing, rather than just focusing on like being in the moment of sadness or not.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? And this is just coming up, so I'll share it. I would want for you to dig into those are distractions because there's some potential that sadness isn't safe for you or crying isn't the way that you were brought up, or I don't know if you saw your parents cry or not, but that like, well, my mind takes me away and basically sucks me out of the place where I could start to cry for a second or feel that is interesting, right? It's a moment for you to go, that's really interesting how it pings me away from whatever that emotion was.
How about during sex?
Yeah.
Do you think that's another? Because I would definitely say this is another thing sometimes where like I'll be having sex, but then I'll think of a bunch of other things that aren't really related. And I'm like, why am I thinking about this thing? And I'll be like, well, how is this helping anything at all right now, Sam? I don't know, but now you're thinking about it. Is it weird that you're thinking about it? Yes, it is weird. So stop thinking about it. And it's like,
well, it's interesting. 2 things come up. Well, 3 things, actually. We're going to be in non-judgment of this because that's the only way to really self-discover, right? And 2, I would also say that it's very normal to happen to me too. I'm sure it's happened to my husband and many other people. Like, your mind's job is to think thoughts, right? Keep you alive and think thoughts. You're having 60,000 thoughts a day. Just because you're having sex doesn't mean you're going to be like, for the whole, let's say, 20-minute interlude, you're like only thinking sex. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's totally normal and natural. Then the other thing it brings me to is how possible is it that there is a connection for you in not feeling the connection deeply? Is there any connection going on with blocking or pinging you away from your emotional self, interrupting a moment that could be highly, highly connective because emotion is vulnerable and real deep connection is vulnerable? We were raised to actually think that it was something to fear and something that was weak. So I'm curious if those things are connected for you.
yeah, that's kind of why I brought it up. I have always been very level-headed and I never got really angry at anyone or really pissed off. Ever. I just like, yeah, it's annoying that you've done that rather than I've never like lost my and jumped out of a chair. I'm like, fuck.
Right.
I've just always been a bit like, okay, well, I guess I'll think about this logically. I feel like I'm a robot. In some ways, I'm trying to cultivate this more in terms of Vipassana. When you have things like anger come up, you don't want to let it overtake you, but I still might get angry about it. Whereas now I'm more like trying to recognize that there's anger here and being like, oh, well, actually, maybe I don't need to be angry about it. I can be nice to this person, like resolve the situation in an even better way. Whereas before I just sort of wouldn't lose my crap, at least.
What's interesting about that also is, do you allow yourself, and I agree, what you're doing in that moment is you're pausing and you're choosing a response versus allowing a reaction and you're going into a conscious decision. And those are amazing things. And have you ever allowed yourself to release the anger in your own safe environment, to let it up and out for the sake of the release and the acknowledgement of your emotion?
I'm really not sure if I have. Can't think of anything. I mean, I've never really like punched a wall or like thrown my laptop out a window or something. Like, I don't know what.
What I would advise, I don't want you to destroy property. What I would advise, and what a lot of my students get tremendous exponential release from, is screaming on purpose, sitting down on the floor, Indian style, really with your tailbone, your sits bone, your root right on the floor, and bringing up whatever it is that you could be holding on to or made you feel angry, and screaming kind of like you're being chased in a horror movie, loud, strong, unencumbered, doesn't matter who hears you, until you have no sound left to give.
That's something I've definitely never done. Because I'm not scared about many things, but then my voice is something that has, I guess, been a problem. I've got much better at speaking and things, but I still never really feel like comfortable screaming or like singing and making like a big show of myself, I guess.
Your language was just interesting, not making a big show of yourself. I would imagine that at some point in your subconscious, playing it small because of the dyslexia that you had was something that was really real for you. So it's like, okay, we can get rid of that now. And you can play huge and you can show it boldly and you can use your voice and you can let your emotions out and you can connect to yourself because it's safe and you can.
When I was younger, I was having to do like speeches in front of the class and sort of being so scared and horrible about it that I actually kind of pretended that I'd like lost half my speech so I wouldn't have to read, even though I had like the rest of the cards there. I was like, oh, I've lost it just so I can sit down. Because I was like, it was going so awfully. And then like whenever, like a bunch of friends and like people were talking and say, oh, Sam, what do you think about this? I'd be like, can't speak. Oh God. Like,
right. Well, that's huge. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, I want to acknowledge that part of you. Acknowledge your little boy. Like that must have been really hard. And it's important too to go to that little boy, give him some love and go, hey, buddy, I get why you did that. And it absolutely has an impact now in you not showing up fully or using your voice. And the not using your voice is directly connected with releasing the emotion or allowing the tears or all. It's like you can see how it's like, oh, okay, it all goes together.
I feel ready to have a big scream after the podcast done.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Good. It's good.
Nice. Wow. Yeah. It's cool. It's like, it's definitely making sense how it's all interlinked and things.
Mm.
And it's why I've been really enjoying, like I said, I really like asking people like their life story and kind of unpacking that rather than just being like, oh, what do you do? Let's talk about that. Exactly. It's like, so nice to see where people have come from and how things have changed and why it's happening. It's really fascinating.
It's like watching someone's evolution, right? And watching like the progress.
Then is there anything in life that is currently troubling you or scaring you?
Scaring me, yes. Fear and I hang out all day, every day. And what I really mean by that is in explaining a little bit about fear before, I'm growing, I'm expanding. I have a very, very strong intention to impact 1 million people, to really awaken and honor their worth and run their mind, right? To really, really do the work that you and I are starting to speak of. And I don't have reference points in my mind for having served millions yet. So that's scary because, on a daily basis, when I'm pushing my edges out and I'm doing big things and I have a 3-day immersion event coming in January that I'm doing and the book came out and beautiful interviews and huge scale speaking things and these beautiful masses of humans that I get to touch. It's scary, but I love it because every time I engage with that fear, and I love it because it's always right here, I realize that I am doing what I'm meant to be doing, right? If you're not feeling fear, then you're not growing, you're not expanding, you're not pushing edges out. So I've learned and I teach how to love your fear. Like, okay, I'm about to do something. It's scary. Oh, look, there's my fear, like a loyal dog standing there waiting. And instead you own it. You love it. Hey, buddy, I love you. I know you're here because you think I'm in danger. I'm not. We're just going to go do something really big. And then you take action for yourself and you start to learn how to use your fear to propel you instead of like block and paralyze you. So yeah, there's fear all the time right now because I am in a major up level time in my own life for sure.
I really like what you said and kind of relates to I've really been trying to detect things that give me fear and I almost pursue them more these days, as in, like we said, about sort of realizing what emotions you're feeling. And before, as in, there was more automatic, like, oh, something's a bit scary. I'll try and like definitely get away from that. Whereas now, as in, I feel the thing that scares me and I'm sort of almost drawn to it. Like, as in, most people don't admit to having weird thoughts about sex on a podcast, but it's like, I think I need to talk about this because this is probably the thing that's like the scariest thing for me to talk about right now. But actually, it was quite useful for me and it was really interesting. I think good for listeners. And like, actually, it was just something that was just much more interesting than talking about the same thing or like something else. And
what's supposedly safe. And I love what you just said because vulnerability is where everyone needs to go. Everyone needs to go there. And it's scary, especially if you haven't started mastering it. And if you haven't done inner work before, vulnerability will trigger your fear response and shut you down. That's why you've got to do this work, because when you do the work, you're like, you can do anything. Your fear is like a GPS for where you need to be going. The last choice in my book, We're the Human, is all about fear because it's that important. It needed its own section because it's the underpinning of every single block for every single human being, period. And we need to learn how to really dance with it.
And then on the subject of fear things, because you spoke about doing Facebook Lives, and I guess as in rooting back to like my kind of fear of talking about myself lots, is in a little bit like, I don't know, scared of doing things live as such on the podcast, and that's something I'm definitely going to sort out. But I was just wondering, like, how did you get into doing that as pursuing my fear, and I'm going to start sorting it out kind of thing?
Yeah. So let me make sure I'm understanding your question. How do you do things live?
Yeah. Just how did you go about doing that? And did you have any fears you needed to overcome, or like, just like go, oh, like if there's a Facebook Live feature, you just hit it and like it just started straight away?
Yeah, kind of ish. I remember my first Facebook Live ever. I was sitting on my back patio. I had my sunglasses on, and that was a protection mechanism for me on my first live. And I remember working my work. Like, there is nothing I teach, talk about, or coach that I haven't done on myself or on another student that I know works. My work works 100% of the time if you work it, period. The only reason it wouldn't is because you're not doing the work. So when I decided, okay, I'm going to do a live because like I have things to talk about and I love talking, much rather talk than write, which is hilarious because I wrote a 57,000 page book. I love to talk. So my first live, I had my sunglasses on. And before I hit the live button, which is all I did, I just paused and I connected to the truth, not the my mind was trying to offer me, which is, are you sure? What if nobody shows up? What if someone makes a comment? All the crap. I just paused for a second. I took a deep breath and I said, wait, like, you're here to serve. You have something really helpful to share. Your work is not about you. It's about everyone else. Press the live and have some fun. That is an example of what thinking on purpose actually feels like. Thinking on purpose means think the thoughts you need to think, to feel the feelings you need to feel, to do the thing you want to do. And that's what I did. And it was super fun. And anytime you do something and you create new reference points for yourself, it then becomes easier and easier every time you do it. So now I hit live, like when I'm half ready, I'm like, just roll whatever. I didn't decide what I'm talking about. I just know I had to talk. And I just hit live and like, okay. And we just start talking. So eventually it gets easier and easier. It dissipates.
I'm so glad I asked that question. Thanks so much. Is there anything you really wanted to discuss that I haven't asked you about?
No, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It was free-flowing and lovely. And thank you for showing up in a way where we could do some work for you, right? And just like have some really good dialogue. That was beautiful and, super helpful because, beautiful humans are going to watch this. This is what it looks like. You showed up vulnerably. We both did. We just shared. We connected. We didn't know each other before now, but now I know you and you know me. And this is one of the beautiful parts of a connection with technology, right? And all the things that you do. You're on the other side of the world and we're having profound growth conversation that if you let it, I'm giving this message right now to our listeners. If you dig into this conversation and you let it help you, it will help you exponentially because there are dozens of nuggets in this dialogue.
Definitely enjoyed making lots of notes. It's been super handy for me. And I think it'd be really useful for everyone else. And hopefully you learned something. One thing actually that does relate to is I think we're both really good at coaching other people. And then something I have found, unless I'm doing something specific that I'm reaching out for a coach for about, I sometimes do feel like I don't get so much sort of coaching and help. Do you feel like because you're always so strong in helping others that people think that you never need any help?
I'm not sure what people think, but I can tell you all what the truth is. I always have a coach. Always. It's like I will sooner stop doing pedicures and manicures before I give up a coach, because having a coach is what enables you to continue to expand and find your blind spots and really go there and be pushed to the next level. I wholeheartedly believe in the coaching industry. It is progressive. It is healing. It is expansive. And I always have a coach. So I've had two coaches simultaneously before for different intentions. But yeah, coaching is everything. So whether or not you want to invest on a coach privately, or you want to find an epic group experience where you can have that guidance and community, do it. I think we weren't raised to invest in ourselves this way. This is a new paradigm. This is a new way to do things. And it's huge. It's something that I really, really hope the masses start to understand, that it's not about investing in a new handbag or a new sporting event or whatever. Those things are lovely. But what we're here to do as human and spiritual beings is heal, grow, and expand. And you cannot do that alone. Even listen, my book is amazing. It will help you. There are work sections. You can use it like a journal. But even beyond this, you have to get help.
Someone else and like talk to each other about it, like a minimum.
Yeah, make a book club or, I do live programs, invest in yourself. You know what I'm saying? There's the personal growth world is huge. If I don't resonate with you, find someone who does, because there's so many magnificent people that wake up every day to serve.
How did you go about finding your coaches? Do you try and get different coaches every few months? Like, what's the process there?
It really depends on what I need, but I'm the strongest believer in a mindset coach. So I also believe when you need something and you put it out in the universe, it's going to come to you. And that's how I found the coach that I work with now. It was like, she just ended up on my Facebook somehow, and I started following her and hanging out and sent her an email. It's like, yeah, I dig you. Like, I know you're what I need right now. So let's do this. And the other coach that I was working with wanted to work on my spirituality a little bit. So that was more intended, right? Like in a certain direction or outcome. Or, a couple of years ago, I had a straight business strategy. You know what I'm saying? It just depends on what it is you need. And do you want to learn? Do you want to be taught something? Like you're saying you're at a course right now. Do you want to just be direct taught? Or are you looking to be coached? And whatever it is, it's available, because everything is available to you as a mindset coach as well. Mindset is everything. So if you are going to choose a coach, find a mindset coach who knows what they're doing, because you will change.
So that's why I started the podcast, is in terms of wanting to serve and help people. Is a podcast all about mindsets and being able to teach people to think better and influence their mindsets. Huge thanks to Tracy for coming on the show, sharing so much love and wisdom and how to deal with all the silly thoughts that we have in our heads and how to become a lot braver and unashamedly ourselves. Remember to release the need for control and expectations and stop listening to your inner critic that just wants to doubt everything, because there's so much to be positive about. And on that, life is to be enjoyed. That starts today. Enjoyment is not like some future goal to reach for. It is a goal right now. So be nice to yourself. And whilst you're at it, be kind to someone else too. Thank you so much for listening.
Go you!
Your consistency to reach the end of an episode is legendary.
My hero!
If you have any ideas or feedback for the show, I'm always interested to hear from you.
You're the best!
Studies show we need time for information to sink in, so I'm going to give you a 5-second pause, silence, to reflect on one idea from the show before you jump back into your busy life. Ready and go.